Good morning. Thank you for joining us here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida for Space Shuttle Endeavour's STS-134 pre-countdown status briefing. Joining me today is Jeremy Graber, NASA Test Director.
Good morning.
Joe DeLye, STS-134 Payload Manager.
Good morning.
And Kathy Winters, Shuttle Weather Officer.
Good morning.
We'll hear from our panelists and then we'll take some questions. Jeremy.
Thanks, Candria. Good morning, everyone. As always, it's great to be here to talk about the launch countdown, specifically STS-134 and our preparations for the 25th and final launch of Space Shuttle Endeavour. Our teams here at Kennedy Space Center and at NASA centers around the country have been working for over a year to get Endeavour ready for the STS-134 mission. Our preparations for launch countdown are all complete or currently in work, and we're not working any issues at this time. Let's see, over the past 10 days, we've completed some major milestones. We installed the ordnance for the vehicle last week on Monday and Tuesday. We pressurized our orbiter maneuvering system and main propulsion system high-pressure tanks last week. We completed the closeout of our orbiter aft compartments on Friday. And finally, today, Endeavour's payload bay doors are in the process of being closed for flight, and we've just finished up our final preparations for the alpha magnetic spectrometer payload, and Joe will give you some more details about that here in a little bit. The STS-134 flight crew is on their way here to Kennedy Space Center. Mark Kelly and his crew are very excited to get here, and they're ready for us to pick up with our launch countdown activities. For today, we'll pick up with our call to stations for launch countdown at 1:30 p.m. and the countdown clock will begin counting, at 2 o'clock. That'll be followed by the checkout of and configuration of Endeavour's avionics systems. And then we'll proceed into several other vehicle and ground system verifications and validations, all leading up to our first major milestone, which is the loading of Endeavour's onboard liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen tanks. And those are used for our electrical power generation system. And that loading will start tomorrow at 11:30 in the morning and finish up around 1800. As we move into early Thursday morning, we'll pick up with our Space Shuttle main engine checkouts, and that'll be followed by the checkout of our orbiter and ground communications network at 1:30 p.m. And the retraction of our rotating service structure is scheduled for 7 p.m. on Thursday evening. As we move into Friday morning, early on Friday, we'll begin our clearing of the launch pad in preparation for our external tank loading, and we expect the start of external tank loading to be at 6:22 Friday morning, and that 3-hour operation finish up around 9:22, at which time we'll send our final inspection team out to the launch pad to conduct their inspection, as well as our closeout crew to prepare Endeavour for the flight crew to arrive just after noon. And then we'll proceed down to our launch window, and for Friday, our launch window, as typical for an International Space Station mission, it's about 10 minutes in length. It opens at 3:42 p.m. on Friday afternoon. We generally target the middle of that window, which correlates to about 3:47 p.m. For any subsequent attempts, we do have Flight Day 3 and Flight Day 4 rendezvous capability, starting with our launch attempt on Saturday the 30th. And if we were to use that, it would give us the capability of about 3 additional minutes to our launch window. For this mission, we are currently billed for a 14-day mission with 2 contingency days and 2 weather contingency days. I know the program is interested in potentially extending the mission, and they'll talk about that once we're on orbit. The end of mission currently is planned here at Kennedy Space Center for 9:29 a.m. On Friday, May 13th. And if we did extend those by an additional day, that would be on Saturday at 9:52 a.m. In summary, all of our vehicle and ground systems are ready. The STS-134 flight crew, Endeavour, and the launch team here at Kennedy Space Center are all ready to proceed. We're looking forward to getting STS-134 launch countdown underway, leading to a spectacular Friday afternoon launch of Endeavour and the AMS-2 payload. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Okay, my name's Joe DeLye, and I'm the NASA KC Mission Manager for ULF-6. And, of course, this Thursday, I think at 10 o'clock, I'll have a very detailed briefing on our payloads. But if we can go to the first slide. Okay, so this Thursday, as I mentioned, around 10 o'clock, we will have a detailed briefing of the payloads for this mission. We're very excited about this mission, but I do want to spend a second or two just talking to you about the payloads. So we're all very excited about the launch this Friday. All the years I've been here, this is probably one of the most complicated missions I've worked on, and yet the most exciting. From the picture, you can see we have AMS towards the aft of the orbiter payload bay, and the deck 3 is in the center, and we're also carrying up the MISSI and Storm payloads on this mission. The weight of the AMS and the deck are about 29,221 pounds, and as Jeremy stated, the flight is going to be 14 days and 2 more possible days. So Deck 3 will be installed on the P3 truss on flight day 3, and then AMS will come out and it will be installed on the S3 truss on flight day 4. And this is just a picture that's showing the deck with the 10 orbital replacement units that will be bringing up this flight. And again, I'll go in a lot more detail this Thursday. And this is AMS as it was seen in our payload processing facility, SSPF, where we finished the integration and testing of it. So payloads are closed for flight. We're not working any issues, and we're ready to support launch. And I look forward to seeing you guys, and I look forward to the payload briefing at the L-1. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Kathy.
Well, weather is almost like summertime outside. There's a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. We have a lot of cumulus clouds outside and even some coastal showers that are coming in on shore. We also have a sea breeze developing today, so we may see an isolated thunderstorm even pop up with the afternoon sea breeze both today and tomorrow. Our main concern is a frontal boundary that's going to be moving into the area on Thursday. It's not going to be a problem for launch. It should be moved through, and the good thing about it will be that it will actually clear things out for launch. But the problem will be as we go into RSS retract on Thursday evening, we'll probably be dealing with some thunderstorms in the area, and there's even potential that a thunderstorm could be severe due to the fact we may also set up a sea breeze in the afternoon and have a combination of the frontal boundary and an afternoon sea breeze both coming together late in the day on Thursday. So for pre-launch preparations, there may be some concerns Thursday evening, but as we get into launch on Friday, that front will move through, and we'll have some cloudy conditions for tanking, but then the weather will improve by launch time. Looking at the satellite picture, you can see the frontal boundary is in Louisiana right now. It's not going to be moving along real quickly until it gets another push from the upper levels and then starts moving towards us on Thursday. We do have a little tropical type wave, if you will, or easterly wave that's offshore northwest of the Bahamas. It's not going to be affecting us. It's just adding some increased moisture in the area, and that's just giving us a very summertime feel outside with our southeast flow and the moisture feeding in from off the water. Looking at our tanking forecast, you can see that for tanking, weather looks good. The front should be moved through by this time. You can see there's some cloudy conditions expected, though still at tanking time, but there's no lightning expected to be in the area. I only put a 5% chance of KSU weather prohibiting tanking, just in the event that frontal boundary happens to linger a little bit longer than expected. For our launch forecast, the front should be well down to the southeast, and so with that, our only concern will be that the winds start to turn around a little bit more from the north-northeast, and there could be some crosswind concern, although right now it's still northerly enough that it doesn't look like it's going to be an issue. It's right on the edge, though, and so with that, we went with the 20% chance of KSU weather prohibiting launch. Usually we can get some help from the aircraft in this situation where we can go up to 17 knots if the aircraft is getting favorable conditions on their approaches. So right now our concern is just crosswinds for launch. For SRB recovery, the weather's going to be just a little bit choppy out there, so it's going to be 5 to 6 foot seas, but overall it should not be an issue for the SRB recovery. And for our abort landing sites in the U.S., there are some windy conditions expected both at Edwards and at Northrop. At Northrop, the crosswind is expected to be 32 knots, so pretty significant weather there at Northrop, but Edwards still within constraints. And Space Flight Meteorology Group is forecasting some bad conditions both at Zaragoza and Morone with chance for showers within 20. And for Istrus, though, the weather does look good. The talc sites are probably best on this first day, but Istrus is looking good on day 1. If we do happen to delay 24 hours, the winds actually come a little bit more easterly on this day, and so there is more of a crosswind concern with winds, the crosswind component being a little bit stronger given that it's more of an easterly wind. So with that, we did increase the probability to a 30% chance of KSC weather prohibiting launch. SMG is forecasting, again, windy conditions at Northrop Field on day 2 with a crosswind of 26 knots, but Edwards is still within constraints. And the tail sights get a little bit worse on day 2 due to a front in the area, but the Isthmus, again, is still one good tail sight there on day 2. And for the 48-hour forecast, the winds come more southeasterly, so the crosswind conditions actually improve. So our concern on this day would just be more showers coming in, or not showers, but cumulus cloud potential coming in off the water or a low cloud ceiling. But overall, the conditions look favorable on day 3, so just a 20% chance of KSC weather prohibiting launch. The abort landing sites improved significantly on day 3 with good weather at both Edwards and Northrop. And Space Flight Meteorology Group is still forecasting chance for showers within 20 at both Zaragoza and Marone. But Isthmus, again, still looks like a good tail site all 3 days. So overall, our main concern for launch day is going to be crosswinds. And there's just a 20% chance of KSC weather prohibiting launch. The main thing will just be if we want to get that frontal system through us on Thursday evening and still be able to complete all of our pre-launch operations.
Thank you. We'll now take questions. When the microphone comes your way, please state your name, affiliation, and to whom you're addressing your question. We'll start over here with Marcia.
Marcia Dunn, Associated Press, for Mr. Graber. If you could just talk about the excitement, the anticipation of having the President and his family come, Congresswoman Giffords, and how you as a team might be planning to really stay focused despite all the hubbub surrounding all of that.
Well, it is exciting to have those special guests that you mentioned. I know the launch team particularly, we've really worked very hard to make sure that all of that excitement and those potential different things that might be going on because of those visits don't impact the launch team at all. A lot of the organization and coordination that we've done with the different folks that we needed to for those visits are very aware of the fact that we've got a job to go do. We've got a launch to go successfully and safely accomplish on Friday, and they don't want to interfere with that whatsoever. So from a launch countdown perspective, there won't be any impact to the launch team and the job they have to go do. That being said, it's always great to have new people come and have the opportunity to see a space shuttle launch. I know with friends of mine and other opportunities to get somebody who's never seen a launch before that opportunity, it really is a life-changing experience, and I think it's a great opportunity for those guests to get to see that.
Marcia, you have a follow-up?
A real quick technical follow-up. If the weather is bad Thursday, how late could you delay RSS rollback before it would start to impact the tanking time?
Well, we have some contingency time built into our schedule. Each launch countdown is an individual experience, and so really we have to see how that plays out. I'm hoping that the weather forecast won't be quite as rough as Kathy has put out there, and that there might be some opportunities of windows for us to get some of the preparation work done between thunderstorms. That being said, we'll see what the weather of the day gives us, and we'll make sure we do as much as we can ahead of time, so that we can be poised to pick right back up with the work after the storms are cleared. There's definitely some contingency time in there. I can't give you an exact number, but it is with hours that we can affect that. And again, we'll put that story together for the launch director early on Friday morning when we have our external take weather briefing, and we'll present those details to the program, and we'll go make the decision on how we'll proceed throughout the rest of the day on Friday.
Bill.
Bill Harwood, CBS. You guys have been talking about crowds that are expected for this launch, and I know there's been some talk about whether or not you can even do a 24-hour scrub because of the time it's going to take the launch team to get home and get back. Where does that discussion stand right now?
Well, like everything else, it's very dependent on the situation of the day, and so our going in philosophy is we're going to take a look at what the conditions give us, and that is what the scrub condition is, when it occurs, and make the smart decision. Our leaders will, flow management and folks will look at all of the details of the day and understand if it makes sense to do a 48 or a 24. And we have some going in ideas about what we think that is, but again, we'll take that information as we get it on launch day and go from there.
Well, what are your going in ideas about?
Well, there is a time frame about the L-4 time frame that, yes, launch minus 4 hours, that basically, if you look at it, it maybe is an opportunity to be a line that you say, before this we do a 24, after maybe we do a 48. But we're not locked into that philosophy. We understand that that's maybe our going in, but we need to look at what happens on the day to understand if that is the way that we're going to handle it that day.
Okay. Todd, please.
Todd Halverson of Florida Today for Jeremy. Could you give us an idea of or what your launch opportunities are for the next several days? In other words, there's a range conflict out there on May the 6th. How many attempts can you get in between now and then? And what does the launch calendar, if you will, look like in May? Because I believe there's a Soyuz returning and a Soyuz going up and then a big beta angle cutout. And it does not look like you're going to have a lot of opportunity in May, and I'm just trying to figure out what the situation is.
Well, you're absolutely right. It's a busy schedule for launches here in May. For our opportunities, we have opportunities all the way. We have 4 opportunities to launch within 6 days. So with the Atlas launch, scheduled for May 6th, we have to give them a day to reconfigure the range. So we have opportunities up through May 4th, 29th through the 4th. Then we get 1 day on May the 8th, and that assumes that the Atlas launched on time. If they use their optional second day, then we'd lose the 8th. Our next opportunity would start on May 10th and takes us almost through the end of the month out to the 26th. We have the capability to go launch in that time frame. So when you look at it, it seems like there's a lot, but we always try to plan for having 4 launch attempts in 6 days, 5-6 days, and based on where we are, we've got that, and we're confident that in that time frame, we've got good opportunity to get off the ground.
Thanks. And just one clarification on that. Does that mean that a Soyuz returning from station around mid-month does not hamper you guys in terms of being able to launch and get docked? And the other question I had is whether or not NASA has sought out or gotten any estimate on how many people are expected to be on the Space Coast to watch this launch.
For your first question, the coordination between the Soyuz on dock and return and our launch, there are many ways for them to go deconflict that work. And so I think that based on the information that we've got at this point, that I think we would have the opportunity to go launch in that time frame. As far as visitors to the local area, I've heard several different estimates, but if you were here for STS-133 and understood that, the estimate is that it'll be more. How much more, I can't really tell you, but that it would be more.
Clara.
Hi, Clara Moskowitz with Space.com, and I'm not sure if this is for Jeremy or Kathy, but I was hoping you could clarify the RSS retract weather constraints a little bit more. Can you do it in the rain, just not thunder, or what exactly are the constraints, and also the crosswind constraints for launch? Just a little bit more details on why that's a constraint.
Okay, I can cover the weather constraints for RSS retract. We want no more than a 20% chance of lightning within 5 nautical miles for RSS retract. Also, heavy rain could be an issue, not so much for the actual operation, but there's a lot of people that are out there during that operation, so it can become a worker safety issue. So those are going to be our main concerns. There's a very high wind constraint. Don't have it in front of me, but I think it's like 40 knots sustained wind, so that's not usually the issue. It's usually lightning or heavy rain. The crosswind constraint is 15 knots. We can get some help up to 17 knots if the aircraft, the shuttle training aircraft, is doing approaches and getting good performance. And so that all comes from the pilot, who will be reporting that back to the weather coordinator in the firing room, and reporting it back to the flight director also. So that's the kind of information that will be shared, and to determine if the crosswinds will allow the vehicle to be able to land. Did I cover that all correctly, Jeremy?
Yeah, you definitely did. And I mean, the main point that Kathy made was, worker safety. That it's also vehicle safety. The whole reason when we rotate the RSS back is we have many observers up there to make sure that everything's moving as it should. And so if you do have those heavy rains, you want to make sure that the folks are safe and that they can do their jobs appropriately. And if they can't, then we delay it.
Hi, Ken Kramer for Spaceflight Magazine. For Joe DeLi, please, can you just go in any payload-related activities that you have today and tomorrow, any late stow experiments? Thank you.
Okay, we did complete our closeouts yesterday, and that went fine, no issues there. And of course, we're supporting the payload bay door closure, the activity that's going on this morning. And we have, and I'll go a little more detail on L-1, but we do have our mid-deck activity, and we have two of them are going to be powered, Glacier and CGBA, and the rest of them are passive. Hope I answered your question. Thanks.
Irene, please.
Thanks. Irene Klotz with Reuters. For Jeremy, how many launch attempts can be made and still preserve the option for the 2-day mission extension?
Well, we've got our hold times for our liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen for our onboard tanks is really what drives that. And we've got 7 days of hold time for the hydrogen side and 12 days on the oxygen side. And really, all of our launch attempts that we have in that initial window, the 4 launch attempts in 6 days, would all then be able to go support those additional 2 extension days. So any of the days up through May the 4th, if we launch on any of those, we'd still have that capability.
And for Joe, were there any relatively late additions from the station program to fly on Shuttle? And if so, can you give us a little idea of what some of those might be?
I haven't. I have not heard of any, like you're talking mid-deck items, stowed items. No, our list hasn't changed recently, and no late ones that I'm aware of. No, everything's nominal, and we have a list of candidates, and we're processing them, and things are going well.
Okay, are there any further questions? Okay, that will conclude today's pre-countdown status briefing. As Jeremy mentioned, the 6 astronauts for the STS-134 mission have departed Ellington Field in Texas and are on their way here. They are expected to arrive at approximately 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time. That will be shown live on NASA television. Again, as a reminder, the countdown will officially begin at 2 p.m. Eastern, and that will not be shown live on NASA TV. For more information on the STS-134 crew and mission, please visit www.nasa.gov/shuttle. Thank you.